Flight of the Navigator on Blu-ray from Second Sight. Had to import it from Europe. This is my review, and I found out about this Blu-ray from James at In Search of Physical Media. So this Blu-ray is totally loaded with new special features, and my favorite is the interview with, what's his name, Joey Kramer? Let's see, what's his name? Yeah, Joey Kramer, the kid who plays David. And also the audio commentary was really good. It was a really good, informative listen. I really enjoyed it. So we had a boys' movie night, and me, the 8-year-old, and the new-year-old watched Flight of the Navigator, and it was awesome. And my 8-year-old was a little scared on the part where he's going through the forest, forest at the beginning. He started covering his eyes, and I was like, no, you don't have to cover your eyes. It's not that kind of movie. So speaking of the audio and video, so it has a PCM 2.0, which sounded absolutely great. And then for video goes, it's a pretty grainy movie, but this restoration from Second Sight was really, really good. And the color and the resolution looked outstanding, and there wasn't a lot of like scratches and dirt and dust. If you turn on the Disney Plus stream, there's definitely, you can see a lot of film scratches and a lot more dirt and stuff, and the colors don't look as good. So this Blu-ray is definitely the preferred way to watch this movie right now. Check out this awesome case. It's like a thicker one. I feel like most European ones end up being thicker. And has a list of everything that's in it. It's a 4K scan, so I wonder if there will be a 4K of this eventually. I can't imagine 4K would look pretty grainy too. And then it's reversible artwork. So the disc is in the player, so you don't get to see that, but the inside is like the original artwork, like such. Like that. So I like the new artwork, so I want that. But this Blu-ray was an absolute joy to watch. It looks so good compared to all the other grainy, awful looking versions of it. And this movie is so much fun. It's only like 90 minutes. The 0-year-old, I mean, he just chilled with us, but my 8-year-old really liked it. And then he ended up showing his little sisters his favorite parts of the movie too. So it was pretty cool. Look at the scene selection. The scene that you don't have selected are black and white, and then it turns color as you go over it. It's kind of a cool little menu touch. Here's some kids captivated by the opening credits while I make my video. So now I'm just gonna go through the movie and show you a couple parts that I really like, or that I noticed, or that I thought about, and kind of like it's a book club and it's my turn to talk. So here we go. So this movie, since we know it's a sci-fi movie, it ends up being such a big tease. So you have like everybody's frozen in place looking up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a spaceship, what's going on? And then it ends up not being. By the way, this is all practical. This is really the shadow of this thing. Anyway, it's just like a blimp, but there's just a whole bunch of teases at the beginning of the movie. Like at first with like the silver frisbee and the dogs, and then there's another tease coming up here, but they're really trying to trick you. Also, there's very clever exposition where they had the straight up the dog competition 4th of July sign, and it's like 4th of July 1978. So then later when there's like a time jump and you find out what year it is, you can know what happened. Anyway, so it's just some exposition just naturally in your face with the sign. There's another cheesy part where he looks up and sees the water tower, and it looks like a UFO, but it's not, and it's just like, man, this movie's so teasy. And then this is the part where my 8-year-old was super scared in here. All right, I actually really love this jump cut right here. So he falls down in the forest. You hear the train in the background, and then suddenly it's a jump cut, and it's like a same forest, but it just seems like a different night. But I really like that jump cut because it's suddenly 8 years later. But when you're sitting there watching it for the first time, you just be like, oh, maybe he was knocked out for a few minutes, and now we're just jump cutting to when he's waking up. So I love that. And I actually think this is some of Joey Kramer, David's best acting right here, where he's pounding on the door and like yelling and he's mad. And then this lady comes and answers it, and at first she's like a little annoyed, like, oh, wrong house, like get out of here. And then he like stops her from closing the door, and like you see her face and she has like kind of a scared face. And then from there, it's like he could go either way. Like he could be like a scary little kid, or he could be like a terrified little kid. And I like the way that he decides to go with it, or I guess that the director told him to go with it.
Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm David. I live here.
She's like,
Think
wrong
you have the
house.
wrong house, dear.
Close it. Freaks her out.
Where's our mom?
I have no idea. Are you lost?
Anyway, I just think he played that so well, going from like kind of scarily stopping the door to like a scared lost little kid, and then she's willing to help him, and then he runs through her house, and it's awesome. But yeah, this part is kind of terrifying to watch as a little kid because, you know, your house is your house where you live, and that's where you can go and be safe. And then he runs in here and like it shows just everything is totally different now. And the scariest part is we burst into his bedroom and it's not his bedroom anymore.
What's the problem, son?
Some more amazing acting right here where he just collapses on the stairs. He's so sad and scared. He's amazing in this movie. So he's now home with his parents who look a lot older. So you think it would like make him feel better, but instead they look like all old and freaky. You know how people look when they're old? Freaky. And his hairline's all receded and his mom looks all old. I love he just gets overwhelmed and just passes out. So the lighting and cinematography in this movie is actually really subtly awesome. So you have his older brother, or a younger older brother there in the shadows where you can't really see his face.
Like I remember.
And then like earlier when he went to his parents' new house, he just has like this light right across his eyes, kind of like the old
totally
like
rad.
60s movie lighting.
You're my big little brother.
And I think this movie's awesome where it's just fun to think about like one of your siblings suddenly being like the total wrong side of the age from you. So I like this movie because viewing it through his perspective, you just keep applying it to yourself. Like, oh, what if my younger sibling was my older sibling? And what if I went to my house and wasn't there? So I think it's a really easy movie just to get super absorbed into. Also, oh my gosh, look at the facial detail on this part. And this kid's acting is so good. I know I've said that over and over, but it's like shocking all the way through. When he grows up. We have their secret code to recognize each other.
Bucket.
So originally they were going to film at NASA at the JFK Space Center, I think. But it was right when the Challenger space shuttle got destroyed, so they had to go to some other place to film. I still think it seems like a convincing government space place, though. All right, so now he's at NASA. All right, so I like to pause it on the part with all the cool 80s toys. So you got Felix the cat, which isn't really an 80s toy. Okay, so you got Felix the cat, like I said, who's not really 80s. And there's actually 3 space shuttle things you can see in the corners. And then I think the space turbo thing is like one of those racing games. And then there's a Porsche. There's one of the, I think the bug Decepticon Transformers. Anyway, I don't know what the Constellation Finder is. But this little helicopter, it seems like one of the ones where you like pull the little plastic thing out and it goes shooting in the air. I'm not sure, but I definitely recognized the Decepticon, and that was exciting. Okay, so here's a little bit of a awkward part because I had a huge crush on
I'm Carolyn McAdams.
young Sarah Jessica
Real
Parker
hungry
on this
after
part
your
when I was
right?
little. She's just so nice and vulnerable, and she's got her little purple hair, and she's helpful and cool. So I super had a crush on her when I was little. So I noticed something on this part where they have this little helmet thing on him to scan his brain.
Okay, now.
Well,
So look at this.
I tried to stop myself.
So I saw his helmet and I'm like, oh, or it's not a helmet, but it's like a little head strap thing. But it reminded me of my firefighting helmet. It's gross on the inside, but these little plastic edge pieces that kind of hold it in, that's like what's on his head. But anyway, while we're looking at it, here's my old fire helmet that still has some retardant drops on it that I didn't wash off because they're too awesome to wash off. Anyway, I just think it's funny that his little helmet strap thing is just like a helmet liner on his head. So I've seen this movie a whole bunch of times, and as I was watching it this time with, like I said, boys' night out or night in with the 8-year-old and the little 0-year-old, there's a lot of stuff I noticed that I'm like, this would not be in a movie made nowadays. And from some of the dialogue earlier in the movie, they said certain words that aren't considered as sensitive or appropriate. But right here, there's Max. Right here. Look at all those guns.
They've got guns.
Yeah, there would not there's not going to be a ton of people pointing guns at a ship with a little kid in it in a movie probably ever again. So it's really cool to kind of go back and watch 80s movies and just see just, I guess, a little bit edgier. I don't know if that's the right word. I think it's like a rated PG like family movie. But even just from like the beginning when he was walking through the forest and he's all scared and he like picks up a stick to defend himself and he's like, "Get back, Jack, I have a gun." Like, I don't think that line would pass like the committees that write movies nowadays. They'd be like, "Nope, not sensitive, cut it out, just tell me he has a stick." And so there's just several parts throughout this movie, and I'm going to show another one that's really funny and would not be okay nowadays. But yeah, this a lot of the parts of this movie would not be made nowadays. This part right here would never be in a movie nowadays. Listen to what Paul Reubens says to this guy.
Too many Twinkies.
That would not be in a movie nowadays. Oh, but it's still funny. Here comes an E.T. reference.
Oh my God. He just said he wanted to phone home.
Just said he wanted to phone home. Okay, so the Canadian way that the kid speaks is also set up that joke. So he said he wanted to phone his parents. So here in America, we say call our parents, but in Canada, they say phone their parents. I know there's some bleed over, but generally that's what I've noticed. Okay, so speaking of the clever, amazing cinematography, when the ship stretches out, they're going to use what I call the Hitchcock maneuver. Right there. See that? That's where they're like rolling in and zooming out, or zooming out while rolling in. But it's cool because it makes it so he stays there, and it makes it look like the back of the ship is actually stretching out. So it's the perfect use of the Hitchcock maneuver. Look at all these 80s creatures. Look at, they're all like, half of them are puppets.
Don't touch. That is Dart Hunter from Sullivan Travels.
They're just like little puppets, and they're like on strings.
What's this?
That is a Penosaurus from the Pixar.
And here's the eyeball creature that just says "I" over and over.
What's in here?
It's kind of on the nose. Eye creature just says "I." This part scared my 8-year-old.
What?
All right.
He's laughing.
Gets to teach him about laughing. And so Paul Reubens didn't use his name in the credits of this show.
Try it.
And so if there's any doubt that this is Pee Wee Herman, you're gonna solve it right here. This full-on Pee Wee Herman laugh.
Nothing. No sign of.
Okay, so I'm not sure if Galaxy Quest did this on purpose, but when Davy and Max are coming in to try and find the house, he lights fireworks so that he can see which house it is. So I don't know if that Galaxy Quest, that's like a homage or reference to this movie, but that's kind of a cool similarity between two amazing movies. And my 8-year-old son actually had a really awesome observation about this part, where David decides to go back and risk vaporization to get to his proper time. And he said, David decides to risk vaporization to go back to his correct time in the past. But what my son pointed out was that when he leaves this timeline, that he'll be missing from the future too. So I think he was feeling sympathy for this group of people that doesn't want him to leave. But depending on your view of the time, if it's linear or if it splits off, like, are these people going to go on missing him? Or when he goes in the past, is that along the same timeline? Is it just going to erase this future? I'm more on that side, where it's just one line, and if he goes back in the past, then this future doesn't exist anymore. But he brought that up. It was a very interesting thought of that they'll be missing from the future. So in this movie, in the end when he's in the ship, his hair changes a couple times, and you actually see his hair looks like really big and boofy sometimes, and other times it looks smaller and more natural. It's because when it's big and boofy, it's a wig over his short-cut bleached hair because he got released from filming. I learned this from the commentary, and then they needed to call him back to do additional shots. So if you're watching this and you see his hair suddenly get like really big and weird looking and then go back to normal, it's because it's a wig. I think this movie has the ultimate happy ending where he gets back to his dad with the hairpiece on, his younger looking mom, and his appropriately aged little brother. He's got the little Puck Marin in his backpack. There's fireworks. They're going on a boat to get burgers. It's just like the perfect happy ending. Everything's back how it's supposed to be. So it was a little bit scary and a little bit unsettling and a little bit fun. But now the journey's over and it's happy and safe. And I love this ending. And this is the second sight Blu-ray of Flight of the Navigator. is incredible. It looks great. It sounds great. I mean, it's still a rough, grainy 80s movie, but it is such a joy to watch. And I think this movie has really aged well, and the special effects were all done practically. There's like a little bit of CG, but it's very clever special effects. So thanks to James at In Search of Physical Media for bringing this movie to my attention. And my kids now love this movie. So anyway, thank you for watching. That has been my review of Flight of the Navigator Blu-ray from Second Sight, imported from the Europe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.